Welcome, all fellow wannabes. Welcome to the show. You are listening to Game Club from Wannabe Critic Productions. I am your host for this evening, Gabriel Fast, and I'm joined by two wonderful gentlemen. I'm joined by Mikey Collins and Ethan Maestri, and tonight we are going to be reviewing Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception for the PS3 and the PS4. We're also going to take a little bit of a dive down Ethan's backstory with these games. He can kind of give his impressions of Uncharted 1 and Uncharted 2. And Ethan, I remember him being one of the only people back in the day that actually had the Xbox 360 and the PS3, like someone that I knew personally. So I kind of want him to dive into that a little bit. But I got to throw it to the guy who has been helping me with these Uncharted reviews. Mikey Collins, how are you feeling, bro?
Feeling good. How you feeling, Pumpkin?
Dude, I laughed so hard because that was in the second episode too, and like just the way you said it and the timing, it was so funny. Like it was cracking me up because I had to it was by accident. I had to go back in and like re-edit the whole thing. Hopefully, people on Patreon didn't catch that like the first time I did, but yeah, no, I had to go back in and like re-upload everything, and that whenever I got to that part again, it made me laugh just as hard the first time. But I'm doing good, Mikey. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Just glad to be podcasting again. It's been a while.
Yeah, me too. It has been a while. And then also joining us, as I mentioned before, we have the surrogate wannabe. We've deemed him. Ethan Maestri. Ethan, how's it going, man?
Feeling good. Feeling fine. Ready to do this.
Good. I'm glad. You were kind of reprimanding us before we got started this evening, and I'll read verbatim what Ethan said. And what was funny was the Zoom meeting was open. It's been open for half an hour, just in case. And Maestri texts me and Mikey together and says, "What's the story here? We doing a pod, or am I grabbing my Ovaltine and hitting the pillow?" Ovaltine? I mean, that reminds me of Young Frankenstein whenever she keeps offering him the drinks. Ovaltine. Oh my God! No, it is. I'm sorry.
Would you like a roll in the hay?
Yeah, exactly. There, wolf. There, castle. Oh my God!
That's so funny you bring that up because that is actually on. It was on Hulu or Amazon. I just watched it the other day, just a couple of weeks ago.
I love
good
that
movie. Good.
It's
flick.
so good. Like it is. I mean, there's a lot of jokes in there. I used to watch that movie as a kid. There's a lot of jokes you don't catch as a kid, like whenever he goes, "What knockers?" and but he's talking about like the door knockers, not what's her hooties, chesticles as they call them. What was her name?
There you go.
I can't forget. What was her name? The blonde. She's really famous. I can't remember it. Dang it.
Terry Garr.
Terry Garr. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was good in that movie. Good times. We're not here to talk about Young Frankenstein. That'd be a good one to do on the Wannabe Collective, I think. That'd be a fun one-off movie.
That could be.
Yeah, good times. Noodle salad. As I mentioned before, we're here to talk about Uncharted 3. But before we do, we wanted to just catch up just a little bit, since it has been a while and these episodes are going to be kind of spread apart. Mikey, we did just record a show. You say the same thing every time, like not been really doing anything. Do you have anything to add tonight?
Add to not doing anything?
Yeah. Like, have you been doing anything at all?
I have been doing stuff lately.
Okay. Enlighten me.
Absolutely nothing.
I knew it, and I hate you. I hate you for
Moving
it.
on.
Yeah. God. Ethan, what's been new in your world?
I have been playing a lot of Stellaris lately. My son and I have made the most of, I've had the week off, and so we have made the most of this week by spending almost all of it playing Stellaris together in multiplayer. And I've been thoroughly enjoying just getting, deeply familiar with that game and just spending... It's been a long time since I've been able to sit down with an RTS and just grind in it and grind and learn all the little ins and outs and tricks to maximizing my empire and conquering the galaxy. And we had a moment, and it's always what you look for in old school, back in the old school Halo days when we all used to get together and do LAN parties. There was always a moment in the night where a battle culminated in some epic situation. And for 10 seconds, nothing else mattered in the world. It was only the action that's taking place right in that moment. And everyone just talks about it for the rest of the night. And we had one of those moments actually just yesterday while we were playing. We were in our in-game crisis in Stellaris. If you're familiar with the game, you know what the in-game crisis is, the big to-do. And one of the fleets came against our combined fleet. We were actually in a federation together. We had everything we owned, keeping our empires alive and sending it against this horde in the galaxy. And the two fleets come together, and we were outmatched, but by whatever trick of the game, the dice rolls of the game, whatever worked out, we actually ended up winning it. And we both were, in our separate rooms yelling and screaming, and we come out in the living room just, it was just, and we were both just, on cloud nine. And it was just one of those moments where this is why we game. This is what we game for. And it was triumphant, and it was epic. And my screen was lit up in so many multicolors. It looked like a disco ball from the lasers and the missiles and everything in the space. And that game's gorgeous. I gotta say. Anyway, I've been up to a lot of that.
Anecdotes, Aliens, and all the rest from Ethan Maestri for Stellaris. I've seen that game go on sale about 100,000 times. I think it goes on sale often, and it's almost like the developer's just like, dude, it's so good, just play it, And I just can't bring myself to do it.
Two things. If you're an RTS fan, this is going to scratch that itch. If you are a sci-fi fan, this is going to scratch that itch. So if you're even remotely inclined in either one of those things, get this game.
Okay.
For the viewers who may not know what it is, what's an RTS?
Oh, real-time strategy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Got it. I had no idea what that meant.
Halo Wars. I started up Halo Wars actually when I got my Xbox recently, and
that's a classic.
Man, yeah. I'm really liking that a lot. I missed having an Xbox. I've been turning it on like every day just to play Master Chief Collection, and I can play Master Chief Collection on my PC. I can, but
it's not the same.
It's not the same. And you know what? My PC will run it better, and I'm actually better at the game on PC. Like, I think I probably have unlocked new skills I didn't even know were there. But it's just not the same as playing on an Xbox.
It's not the same. Eli's made that comment, too, because he started playing Battlefront 2 on the Xbox and then has migrated over to his PC that he built. And he is a much better player on PC. It looks gorgeous. His reaction times are so much better. But he's like, it's different than not having the little controller in your hand, And
it's almost like it's not Halo in a way. Like, for me, it just feels different. I mean, and I have a nice wide monitor, so it's just like that alone kind of throws me off. And it is nice, like whenever I'm trying to like get better at the game. But then it's so funny, like when I go to play on Xbox, since everything carries over, like the game thinks I'm God tier, So I just like get put with people that just absolutely rock my world, And it's kind of funny. But I did learn a trick. I had my settings turned down, my aiming settings. So literally on my TV, my aiming settings are now just fully maxed, and it feels a lot like my PC now. So yeah, no, that's cool though. I want to get more into Halo Wars, and I enjoy RTSs, but it's one of those things. If I know I'm not going to spend a significant amount of time on a game, and I'm not on the fence about it, or I'm on the fence about it, it doesn't matter if it's $5. Like, it's hard for me to pull that trigger just because I know it's just going to be another thing that's just thrown on the backlog, the pile of shame, as they call it. And I'm trying to work my way through those experiences. I'm trying to work my way through that pile of shame right now. So go ahead.
It's probably not the show for this discussion. And I'm not going to take us down the rabbit hole too far with it, but it is something that I have been thinking about more lately and think it would lend itself to a good discussion at some point, either on this podcast or another one. The difference between playing on console versus playing on PC. And it kind of struck me the other day. You and I, Gabe, were talking last night, I think it was. And after our conversation, it hit me. I'm so used to sitting in front of a PC and it's time to go to work. So when I'm gaming on a PC, I'm doing something serious. This isn't relax time. I'm getting down to it. And I play Elite Dangerous that way. I don't play Elite Dangerous to relax. I don't play Stellaris to relax, even though it is relaxing and it's enjoyable. But I'm focused. I'm hyper-focused on what's directly in front of me and on my keyboard and what I'm doing. Console is different because I'm usually sitting on the couch. And it's time to kick back. It's time to relax. And so there really is a difference in personality in the two game types. So, you and I, we've joked back and forth about PC Master Race and things like that, and console over PC and vice versa. But really, it's what are you in the mood for?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I got so tired, and, this is a wannabe critic production. You understand me? Like, we can talk about whatever we want and whatever lengths that we want. We're talking nerd noise. We're not saving lives. No, I totally agree with you though. Like, it turns into one of those things where if I'm playing on my Xbox, I'm probably watching a show on my iPad, like right next to it, where I can just glance over, or doing something else along with playing. I'm probably not super focused. There's a good chance the volume is probably off. I got pretty sick of people saying like, oh, like you're an idiot if you don't game on PC or yada, yada, yada. So I bought one. And guess what? The setup that I have, I can run max settings, max everything, no problem, at 100 hertz at 1440, which is plenty. And if you don't think it's plenty, you're wrong. Like, you're just across the board. You don't need anything else. Like, I think games, after experiencing higher frame rates, I do think games should run at least 60 frames. I think that's kind of the standard. Because, like, I was going to play my PS3. I was playing it yesterday, and I was like, oh, God, like, ooh. It just looked ancient, and I never realized. But it comes down to one of those things of you don't know what you're missing out on until you upgrade. But having both now, I have a Switch, I have the big three, and I have a gaming PC, and I can say with 100% certainty that if I'm wanting to like actually play better at a game, a multiplayer game, I do most of my multiplayer gaming on PC. If I really want to enjoy myself, which I think there is enjoyment in that, but if I want to enjoy myself and like take my time, and like it's not that big of a deal. Like if I'm losing, TV all the way. Like with the gradient light behind my TVs, like lighting up, it's an experience. It's like being at the theater almost. And it is totally different. It's almost like beer versus whiskey or something like that. Like, one's a bit lighter and one's a bit serious. Mikey, what are you drinking, by the way?
That's appropriate.
Lafroig, some sketch.
Oh yeah, I saw you pour that. I meant to text you and glow a little bit because I got my hands on 3 bottles of Sazerac tonight. So,
yeah,
nice. So I'm balling. I'm balling like shot. I'm balling shot
calling. Nice.
Yeah, but no, I would love to go into that discussion more. We have some other. Mikey, do you have anything to add to that? We kind of just hogged the conversation there for about 5 minutes. You got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I have been on the teetering side of PC console because I've never really made the final push to get a PC. But the more research I do and the more setup I do, because I basically have a PC setup here to where instead of a PC, all I have is a PlayStation on my desk right here. So I kind of have the best of both worlds where I'm playing on a monitor. I have like a surround sound system or my headphones, whatever, but I still have a controller and a console. So gaming's always fun for me, but I've never really had the PC experience, but I can see how it would be because I play on a lot of games that are cross-platform, and you kind of hear that argument like in chatter where they're just like, dude, I'm playing on a PC, that's why I'm destroying you at this game. And it's like, I see what you're saying, but it's also if I destroy you, that makes it even better.
Me and Mikey have talked about that. Like, oh, like mouse and keyboard, you're better. No, you're not. Like, you're not.
I can play mouse and keyboard on my PlayStation. That doesn't mean
you're not inherently better just because you play on mouse and keyboard. And I'll put it to you this way: out of all the stuff that I have, guess what I play the most?
Console. My
PlayStation. Yeah, that's what I play the most. After getting my PC, Rex Tucker, this one's for you because he called me out on Twitter it's been almost a year ago. And I said, you will never in a million years get me to play my PC more than I play consoles. It's not going to happen. And he's like, okay, we'll have Twitter remember it. And I'm like, I wish we would put money on it, because the console experience across the board for me is it's the everyday, you know. I'll put it to you this way. We've talked about the whiskey versus the beer thing. I'm going to take it even a step further. And Ryan Mazzacco, if you're listening to this, I'm going to quote you. Because I was talking about getting a 12-string guitar one time, right? And I did have a 12-string for a while. And I'll never forget what Ryan told me. He's like, yeah, having a 12-string is cool, but it's just not a guitar that you pick up every single day. And I gotta say, it's gotten to the point to where if I really like a game on Xbox that I got to try on Game Pass, or I'm like, okay, I'm digging this game, I'm going to go buy it on PlayStation. If there's games on PlayStation where I'm like, oh my God, I wonder how this looks on PC, if it goes on sale on PC, I'll buy it again. I'll double dip just to have that experience on PC. We were talking about No Man's Sky last night on sale. Like, I'm in a position to where I can do that, and that's cool. And it doesn't matter how much time I put into it. It's all about enjoying the experience, you know? Which is, and that opens up an even bigger conversation. We're talking about Uncharted 3 tonight, right? Ethan was able to play it on his PC. He's able to stream it with PS Now, which is amazing. Why would Sony give you the ability to play a few of those games and get you invested into the franchise on your PC? What is their main driving point? What are they trying to get Ethan Maestri to do? And maybe we could segue this into what we were talking about off mic about Maestri potentially, we were talking about maybe getting a console. What is PlayStation by having PS Now available on PC to where you can stream those games? What are they trying to get Ethan to do?
I think you're leading me into the answer of possibly going ahead and stepping up to a console so I can get those titles that aren't available on my PC.
And I have to ask, because I've wondered, that's the strategy, right? We've talked, like, that's been talked about a bunch on gaming podcasts, and like that's a big driving force as to why Sony's putting a lot of their IP on Steam now, and on PC, like to where you don't have to stream it, you can just buy it. So for you, Ethan, does it get you thinking like, man, I can get a base PS4 for a pretty good price to be able to play Uncharted 4? You as the player, is that worth it to you to go ahead and make that decision of like leaning towards more towards the party of buying one? Or is it kind of like would kick yourself? It's like, well, if I'm only going to buy it to play one game, like what's the point? Like, I want to hear your thoughts on this, because obviously that is a spoiler alert. That's what Sony's trying to get you to do. They're trying to get you to buy a PlayStation, and potentially it's like, hey, if you're gonna buy a PS4, you might as well buy a PS5 because you can get that whole library on, and it's not that much. It's only about $150 more. I mean, come on, man, like don't be that way. I mean, go ahead.
Yes, that is ultimately what Sony would want me to do. The subscription is at such a low price point that it makes it really easy for me to just look through the catalog they have there and decide, I finished Uncharted 3, so yeah, I'll play Uncharted 2. I'll keep the subscription going. There's incentive for the subscription to keep going. It's when we have conversations like what we've had, you and I, Gabe, in the past, and what we're going to have this evening, talking specifically about the Uncharted series, that's when I start thinking, yeah, maybe I would like to have a console, because I haven't played 4, ever. So now seems like a great time. So yeah, I start thinking about it, and I look on eBay, and I see what's out there, and I start shopping around, and I start daydreaming about picking up an old PS4 and going through it. But here we've had this whole conversation about console versus PC, and I will have to go ahead and divulge that right now I'm probably going on 4 to 6 months where I haven't played anything on my Xbox. The Xbox is out there. It's a Blu-ray player and a media streaming device. That's all it does at this point now.
Dang, it sounds like
all of my game. So for me, my gaming has gone exclusively to PC. And while I will entertain the thought of getting a PS4 and might even do it at some point, I know that thing is going to sit there and collect a lot of dust and may not be worth the $150 or so that I throw at it. Is it going to hurt me? No. And it'd be nice to have the experience, but is it going to somehow pull me back toward console gaming? Not that one. You know, I'd have to get serious about maybe getting a PS5 if they ever become available again before I would entertain that.
Yeah, and I think that's really kind of the heartbreaking thing, because to me, if PS5s were readily available, I guarantee you Mikey would have one, and I would be on you like a hawk, like trying to get one, because there is so much cool stuff available right now. Available on the PlayStation that comes with the PS5. If you're a PS Plus member, you have it day one. There's a bunch of things to jump into, but it does turn to that thing of also, I play my PS5 a lot because that's where, to me, this is kind of the second, the PS4 was kind of the second coming of like the Xbox 360. And the PS5 is literally just a 0.5 version of that same thing in a lot of ways. Like, to me, the Xbox 360 felt like just the place to play games, like console-wise. That you didn't, like, if you had a PS3, guess what? And that's kind of what we're going to get, this is kind of what we're going to talk about is, what was the difference in your playtime between your 360 and your PS3? But if you had a PS3, you were playing Uncharted. You were playing those few exclusives only. You probably weren't doing a lot of multiplayer gaming on that machine. Whereas PlayStation 5 has kind of turned into what was for me, which I kind of came in towards the end of the Xbox 360 era, kind of turned in for me of this is where I want to like devote time to an ecosystem. I want to be devoted in this ecosystem. And I do have an Xbox. I almost have 40,000 gamer score now. And I do have a PC, but I am a PlayStation player and a Switch player. I spend a lot of time on my Switch usually, but I've been pretty tied to my PlayStation recently. But as far as like your history with like Uncharted, the Uncharted series, and more specifically like the PS3 and the Xbox 360 era, what can you kind of like ball all of that up together as what your experience was with those machines as well as the Uncharted series?
Okay, we're going to go all the way back to my early console days. I was an N64 guy. Loved the N64. And then this little thing called a Sony PlayStation came along and just blew me away with polygons and all of this stuff that was just awesome. And Gran Turismo and Tomb Raider and all of these great games. And Tomb Raider especially, all of those Tomb Raider games from the first generation PlayStation, that's what laid the foundation for my love for the Uncharted series. And so I skipped the PS2 era altogether because I went to Dreamcast.
Oh,
I
had a Dreamcast?
I had a Dreamcast, and I had like, I don't know, 30 titles, which I think is all the Dreamcast had. I think I had almost every title on Dreamcast.
I had every single Dreamcast game. They were all illegally burnt, illegally downloaded, and burnt to a disc. But I had them all. And
no, I gotta say, if you're a completionist, Dreamcast is the system you want because it was awesome. The games were fantastic. The hardware was fantastic and innovative, and I absolutely fell in love with the Dreamcast. So when it went away, I was very sad and was somewhat reluctant to buy this new Xbox thing that I knew Microsoft had helped with the Dreamcast. Now they've come up with their own thing, which to me felt like a stab in the back to Sega Dreamcast. So I didn't immediately jump on board the Xbox train. But after I played over at my brother's house some Halo multiplayer, that was it. And I was Xbox from there out. So Xbox 360, and that was primarily, particularly with the Halo franchise, that was my drug of choice. And I skipped the PS2 generation. Fast forward to 2008, and I get a PS3 because I wanted a Blu-ray player because Microsoft lost the... Yeah, Microsoft lost the... Yeah, and so I ended up buying one, and I was playing whatever Gran Turismo demo was on there, and just a handful of other games. There was a multiplayer game, and I was trying to look it up the other day. I cannot remember what it was. That's a discussion for another time, though. In any case, I had games that I liked on PS3, but it wasn't like a game changer just yet. And then I went and visited my brother, and he, at the time, Uncharted 2 had come out. I hadn't played the first Uncharted. he shows me Uncharted 2, and it opened up my eyes to what a game could be. You guys talked about it a little bit, what I heard on the first Uncharted game. Uncharted 2 was my introduction to the Uncharted series. So when I come back home, a friend of mine had the first Uncharted game. It said, hey, if you want to play it, go right ahead. So I played that one very quickly. Wasn't terribly thrilled with it. You know, it was a good game, and I enjoyed it, but I was really looking forward to Uncharted 2 because the gameplay was so much better. So I was patient enough to go through the first one, got that story, started into Uncharted 2, and that one just rocked my world. And my gaming life changed quite a bit there for about 3-4 years through the Uncharted 2 and into Uncharted 3. And I was a Sony guy. I was PlayStation guy.
You were PlayStation all the way.
Yeah.
Now, you played quite a bit of the multiplayer, correct?
Yes. Uncharted 2 was, that was early on. They had Versus, which it was really wonky because I was coming out of the Halo multiplayer and it was not the same. Naughty Dog was trying to do something different, and I give them props. There was the bones of something decent there, but it wasn't until Uncharted 3 that they got their horde mode figured out, and player versus player and horde mode were actually enjoyable in the third Uncharted. But I did play a lot of Uncharted 2, and it was fine, but I had Halo Reach to jump over to when I really wanted that multiplayer experience.
I love that game, and I love, like, to this day, I mean, especially with Master Chief Collection, like, being able to jump in from Halo 3 to, like, Halo Reach, like, back to back, like, you don't really know what you're going to get if you have those games selected. It's just like, God, Bungie just the best. I mean, it's the best. It is the best multiplayer ever across the board. It's insane.
It's hard. You can't argue that one.
It's a hard road to go down. You know, whenever you start talking about what's the best multiplayer experience ever.
Come on, Mikey. I can see you. Fight me on it.
I never got to play it.
What?
Reach multiplayer?
I didn't have a Xbox then, man. I started gaming.
Wow.
I got a 360 when Guitar Hero 3 came out. That was well after Reach had been out, so I totally missed that boat.
Yeah,
the first Halo I ever played was 4, I think.
Yeah.
So,
me and you were in your parents' basement playing Halo 4.
Halo 4.
God, good times. Good times. Yeah. No, I love hearing your history with the franchise and with the consoles, and you know, I think there was a time period where it was really hard to be a PlayStation fan, and like, thank God. Here's the deal. Thank God that there was like actually good content creators at IGN who were pushing, like Greg Miller and Colin Moriarty, like, that were pushing the envelope for PlayStation. Like, I would argue that the bigger fan base, if all the stuff that that you probably ever saw was chosen by people that were, you know, those two people that were leading that team at the time. And it's like, man, like, they really kind of helped shape that. And I'm glad, like, I go back and look at old PlayStation reviews and stuff. I'm like, God, there was a time where it was just awesome. Like, games journalism and like reviews and stuff like that were just awesome to listen to, and it felt good. It didn't feel like a commercial, you know. And yeah, I mean, I wish I could have had both consoles, you know, at the same time whenever I started getting into games, you know. And it's funny, like, around the same time, like 2000, I guess it was 2011 or 12, Uncharted 3 had come out. And that was about the time that Ethan and I started hanging out. And, you know, playing other games and kind of seeing, like, it's kind of the same thing. Like, PlayStation is a big reason why things were kind of opened up to me in a way to where, like, I could see, like, oh my God, games are freaking awesome. You know? So it's kind of cool to hear you talk about, like, the same thing a little bit.
Well, it's like that to me is kind of the golden era. So starting in 2009, Uncharted 2 is my jam. That really is. I'll just state it right now. That was my hands down favorite of the campaigns. Definitely to go through.
Really? God, don't listen to our review.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. No, it's good. We're fair. We're fair on it.
But yeah, starting there in 2009, from 2009 to 2013, you just had, look at those years at top selling games, and you've got Uncharted 2, you've got Halo Reach, bam, bam, 1 year right after the other, 2009, 2010, 2011, Uncharted 3, 12, you have, well, in between there, you have Arkham Asylum in 2009 or 10.
Yeah.
Arkham City, 2012. And then 2013, Bioshock Infinite. And I mean,
And The Last
those
of
were
Us.
all games, and Mass Effects coming out during that whole time. You had this absolute smorgasbord of awesome game content played on either a PS3 or a 360 or both
Only.
if you wanted it.
Yeah.
Only. Well, yeah.
I'm just saying,
I'm
like,
thinking of Mass Effect coming out on PS3 later.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was
When I guess
enjoyable.
PC too, there was stuff on PC, but still, those exclusive experiences for the most part. I mean, if
And that's not to say that there aren't good games that come out now. There's good games coming out all the time, but it was like these were. It's almost the same thing like in entertainment. You know, you had water cooler moments with certain TV shows, and you don't have that anymore because of streaming. And now what we have is all of this glut of content and all of these games coming out, and you're playing one type and you're playing another type and I'm playing another type, and we get together to talk about them and we don't relate because we're all experiencing different games at the same time. And that wasn't the case. All of your friends, if you had an Xbox 360, all of your friends were playing the same game. And you were all having those water cooler moments and stuff to talk about when you got together later on to have a beer or something, talking about matches you had together or the story element that you all encountered at some point. And some of that is being lost because of, I'm so glad we've got all this content to enjoy anytime we want, but it also diminishes kind of the sharing a little bit too. That's why I'm glad for your podcast here, Gabe.
Yeah, no, because we focus on the important stuff. No, there was a time period where it was like, what's an indie? Like, what's an indie game? They were out there, but they weren't getting attention. And it's like if you were playing games, there was a handful of things that you had to play. It's like, oh, you have a next generation console, but you're not going to play whatever. It's like, why? Or it's like you just were, And I think that golden era of 2008 to 2013, kind of like what you were saying, Ethan, like kind of like laying a foundation for a lot of things to follow. And I have to sneeze. It's trapped. Okay, I guess I don't. It's just like laid foundation, and everything changed after that. Like after PS4 and Xbox One come out, everything changes, and it's nice to be able to revisit these games and kind of hear like our experiences with them and kind of talk about how important they were, And I really like the Uncharted series. It never has hit for me the way that it's hit for other people, but I do enjoy it. So I feel like that's a good, this is a good conversation to revisit another time, but let's go ahead. Let's segue into our review of Uncharted 3, unless Mikey has anything to add. He was just politely listening, as we were going back and forth. Mikey, do you have anything that you want to say?
I mean, it's just touching watching you guys just go back and forth.
It's reminiscent of the old Age of Geek days, definitely.
Way to make it uncomfortable, Mikey.
It's not uncomfortable. Just for the record, ladies and gentlemen, every time me and Ethan get off the phone together, I always say I love you, but he never says it back because he hates me. No,
It's
I'm
like
just
me
kidding.
and you, Gabe.
Yeah, no, it is the same. It's the same thing. No, I'm joking. All right, the time has finally come, and obviously,
what is it? Another call out to Ryan. What is it he always says?
Oh.
I have affection for you.
I have
too.
affection for you. Yeah, I have affection for you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I always love having you guys on the show because you have friends, and then you have friends that you can podcast with. And that's been the biggest thing for me is stepping into these shoes over the past 3+ years. It's been like, there's been a lot of stuff we've done, and some of it's been great and some of it hasn't, but it's been just a lot of fun across the board. And, it's awesome to be able to sit down and talk games with you guys. So,
well, that was a good show, guys.
yeah, good show.
That's it for
good
this
to see
one.
everybody. Uncharted 3 is fine, whatever. No, getting into our review, and of course, I should have said that there would be timestamps, but about 36 minutes in, is whenever our review is starting. Feels like we've been talking a lot longer, but it's only been about half an hour. So there you have it. So, Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception, developed by Naughty Dog. Initial release date, sorry, I get kind of burpy. Initial release date is November 1st, 2011. Composer, Greg Edmondson, we'll talk about him later. Platforms, PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. Designers were Amy Hennig and Jacob Minkoff. Amy Hennig was the director for the game, and I believe it was her last foray in Naughty Dog. I don't think she worked on Naughty Dog stuff anymore after that. Neil Druckmann kind of creeped in, I believe. Because for whatever reason, there's a big story behind Uncharted 4. Like, basically, the team, like Neil Druckmann's team basically came in and took over Uncharted 4 and made that game, basically, which is kind of interesting. I hope there wasn't any, bad blood between them or whatever. But anyways, also fun fact for you, this game was being developed the same time that The Last of Us was being developed, because they had a part, there was a point in the development where Nolan North is over at the Uncharted studio, and he walks over to see what they're doing at the Last of Us studio, and Nolan North's like, "Oh my God, you have to put me in this game." So literally, he was able to like read some lines and like be in like mocap a part in Last of Us at the same time he's making Uncharted 3, which kind of blew my mind whenever I learned that. So that's kind of cool. The plot for Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception, it says, oh shoot, I had it pulled up and I just lost it. Can you guys
when did Last of Us come out? Mikey, do you have info on that?
I think
it came out in 2013.
2013?
I believe that's right. Fact check me. I'm looking up Uncharted 3 plot because I had it and I lost it somehow.
2013 doesn't sound right.
Man, I'm like,
it's interesting that
sure.
Because I understand they had to have been early in Last of Us production. Because you're right, Uncharted 3 did come out on PS4. The PS4 had just come out in Did it come out in 2011?
No, PS4 came out in late 2014, I think. 2014, didn't it?
PS3. So Last of Us was a PS2 game.
No, Last of Us
PS3.
was like the last game, like last exclusive that got put out.
The last title
that got put out for PS3. Because it was
I'm getting my format wrong.
Gotcha.
Because there was a big hubbub because The Last of Us came out, and then a year later they put like the remastered version on PS4.
That's right. That's right.
So that's what like the problem was it got all this, it was getting all this traction, and like there was a DLC for it, and then all of a sudden it's like, it got announced like the remastered version for PS4 got announced like a year later. It's like, okay, coming later this year, remastered Last of Us on PS4, blah blah blah, the full experience, whatever. So
I kind of remember that because that was one of the amongst all of the thing that was happening with the Xbox One and the PS4 rollouts, you were getting this gimmicky crossover from the previous generation. You were able to you were getting all of the previous generation titles on your new generation box.
Kind of the start of that.
Yeah.
That cross-gen thing.
Yeah, and I was very turned off to it at the time.
Yeah, June 14th, 2013, by the way. So, but they took forever to develop that game. I mean, they took a long time to work on it.
And it was a high-quality game when it came out.
Yeah, totally.
As a result of taking their time to do it. But that's a discussion for another time.
No, that is a discussion. We will have that discussion at some point for sure. I have to ask, and I do have the chart, the plot pulled up. It says, fortune hunter Nathan Drake is catapulted headlong into an adventure that takes him on a daring trek into the heart of the Arabian desert in a search for the fabled Atlantis of the Sands. This journey pits him and his mentor Victor Sullivan against the occult treachery of a shadowy, clandestine organization and its ruthless leader. When the terrible secrets of this lost city are unearthed, Drake's quest descends into a desperate bid for survival that strains the limits of his endurance and forces him to confront his deepest fears. Does that sound like an accurate depiction of this game to you guys?
Honestly, if you left out the details of the very specific details, they're looking for El Dorado. So if you left out the or was that the first game?
That was the first game.
Yeah. The Atlantis of the Desert. Yeah, I'm getting my games mixed up now. But that's the point, though. Yeah, I was going to say, that's the point. If you leave out the details of the specific names they're going for, this game, Uncharted 3, really does follow the same high points that the first game did. And to a lesser extent, I feel like, the middle game. I mean, you could almost cut and paste the plot progressions from all three of these games. That being said, I love the way they tell stories.
Yeah, no, it's very detailed. And it's one of those things where the problems that I had with the first game and the problems what I had with the second game totally carry into the third game for me, where I'm like, dang it, Bobby. Like, as I'm playing this game, there's stuff, and we'll get into it. I don't want to show my hand too much, but I just wanted to make sure that was kind of an accurate description of what we were getting into with Uncharted 3. Yeah, as I said before, developed by Naughty Dog. I think we hit it all. Eurogamer gives this an 8 out of 10. GameStop is a listed reviewee for some reason, 4.6 out of 5. 95% of Google users like this game. So we're not using that as a compass. We're just saying that that's what the people on the internet are saying about it. And we'll obviously give our scores at the end. Maestri, we officially lifted the decimal ban. So if you want to give this game a decimal rating, you're more than welcome to. I'm not going to do it because I don't believe in that, but you do whatever you want. So, Mikey, throwing it to you. Uncharted 3, do you like this game?
I love this game.
Okay.
In short.
Way to show your hand. You were giving Caleb crap the other day about it, but whatever.
I know, that's why I said it.
Ethan, do you like this game, yes or no?
No. There's qualifiers to it, but I mean, as we get into this discussion, I think you'll understand where I'm coming from, because you're looking for a 1 or a 0 here. You're not looking for anything in between.
It's a hot
between
take
the one,
yeah.
I'm somewhere between the 1 and the 0, but I'm going to have to go with the 0 at this point. So no, to give you a binary.
Yeah. Well, Mikey said he loved this game. I like this game. And this very much in the same way that I like the Uncharted games, but I don't love them. They've never clicked for me.
I like this game.
Okay.
But you're asking, do you? I mean, okay.
You're the one.
Mikey
You're the one that said it. You're the one that said it.
Love or no? It's like.
Yeah.
Or
do you like it? You don't have to love it.
Beyond.
Yeah. Mikey broke the rules, and this will be his last podcast.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Well, okay. Let me change that then. I like it, but it's a qualified like, and we'll get into the details of it.
Yeah. I think this game has a lot of really cool things going about it, and I do like it. But it's just one of those things where I don't love this series. I don't. And we'll get into it. We'll for sure get into it. So, but let's get into the things, the things that we do enjoy about this game and the Uncharted series in general. Because I feel like at this point, I will say, and there's a disclaimer at the beginning of this for me. Uncharted 4 was like the last game that I played after Uncharted 2. And after playing Uncharted 4, for me, it's so hard to go back to these games. Because I feel like Uncharted 4 is just, across the board, one of the best designed games ever. Like, in terms of execution for playability and, gameplay and just story in general. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard for me. So I just wanted to give that disclaimer. But Mikey, let's throw it to you. What are the kind of the high points and the things that you really enjoy about this game?
Oh man, I hate going first. I mean, I'm gonna sound like a broken record with this, but the music. I love the music in this whole series. Love the music. Yeah, exactly. That, and then I don't know. There's just something about this third one to where I was just like, okay, finally, this is what I wanted these games to be. To where, with 2, we didn't get to talk about with Ethan much, but with 2, I got kind of bored, and with 1 is what introduced me. Where I was like, oh, this could be great, and then 3 is where it was just like, oh, it's. Like you guys were saying, it's a mixture of like everything, and I was just like, this is what I wanted the whole time. This is awesome. So specifically, do you want like, are you talking like parts of the game or like?
Yeah, I mean, and if you want to, because to me, when we're talking about all the things we enjoy, I'm talking anything, like a moment, a relationship, a scene, like a sequence, anything. It doesn't have to be anything crazily significant. It's just things that you particularly stood out to you as like, that's cool, you know?
Man, so many scenes. I mean, a big one for me was the desert scene, like when he's lost right after you fall out of that plane. That was from where you fall out of the plane to where you finally see more people, that whole just section was you've seen that attempted in other games, and I feel like it was really well done in this game to where it didn't feel too how do you put it, clunky, because in other games they'll be like you'll play a short section and there'll be a giant loading screen and it'll be like 3 days later or something like that. I felt like I actually played through that sequence and was like hallucinating and like had struggled through that, you know? And I don't know, I just really enjoyed that part. I don't know why, it was just something about it.
I thought it was like Vacation. Mommy over the
yeah.
He's like, you know, he's got like a shirt on his head. No.
Yeah.
It
was cool. I just there and a couple other sections of the game did that to me. I was just like, they did a really good job with that. I'm actually pretty impressed for how old this game is.
For me, that was like the ship scene where you're like jumping from ship to ship and like, you know, the water's crashing. To me, that was something where that actually was really impressive.
Yes.
You know, that felt like next gen.
That was cool. I liked that part, but to me, what the cool part of that whole section was when you're hanging from the chandelier and you can see the water through the glass. That actually like freaked me out a little bit, because my mom, she's a big romantic. This is weird. My mom's a big romantic lady, so she would watch Titanic all the time when I was a kid. Yeah. So I would always watch Titanic, so I'd be terrified of like sinking ships.
Dude, so I'm the same way.
When I played through that section, I was like, oh God. I was terrified.
Mikey's like, it's been a pleasure playing with you, gentlemen.
Basically.
Oh my God.
That's like I cannot play Subnautica because I have a degree of what do they call that? The thalassophobia or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Thalassophobia, or fear of deep water, of the ocean, you know, of the dark and the deep. And you're right. When in that scene, there is a little bit of that kicks in for me, and especially when the water starts coming for you, when you're running back down the hallways on their side. There are moments where this game does and this was kind of a thing that was starting to happen at the time when this game came out. Developers were trying to figure out a way of, you know, two-dimensional gaming on a screen had gotten a little bit stale. It was kind of the same thing, whether it was third person or first person or whatever the case was. So they were trying to throw elements in there that shake it up a little bit. And they really leaned heavily, Naughty Dog did, in this game on doing that. And I think that they, for the most part, made it work and made it artistic, and it was done well. But there were also times where it was wonky and broken and annoying, and in some cases, like with the desert scene that you were talking about, very well done. Yeah. And it made you feel it. It was visceral for about a minute and a half, and then it got old. And I remember on this last game, when I played it about a month ago, when I was going through it this last time, I was sitting there in my chair playing through it, and it went on for a minute, and then the 2-minute mark came in, and then by the time we got to the 3-minute mark, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. I've got a few more minutes here. So
same thing with like whenever he's hallucinating after he's been hit with the dart, I'm like running through, and I'm like, come on. Like,
this has to wear off.
Let's go. I'm ready to freaking go. I'm Nathan Drake, and he's running like, you know, that was one thing about his running in this game. I'm like, why are you running like that? Did you poop your pants? Like, that's what it kind of looked like. He's like, like running like that. And I don't know. There was just something, there were annoying parts like that for sure. Go ahead.
I need to ask a question about the gameplay. Was the running, I don't know, what do you call it? The running mechanic. Was it smooth for you guys?
No.
Okay. I was
I'm like,
wondering,
why can't I sprint? That's
exactly,
always been my thing.
Exactly. It like it would go in bursts, but then it would like randomly stop. And then there was something that you guys had talked about in an earlier podcast, and I think the first Uncharted, ducking between cover was still in this third game a real problem. And highly annoying, and I died so many times trying to get behind a rock, and instead he was going behind the stone wall 6 feet away, and it felt broken to me. Or there were things like that it's like somehow they did not manage to get those things fixed through 3 games.
Yeah, or there's a bunch of guys, like there are moments where it's like, well, I guess I gotta kill these guys like right now, because if I duck there, that guy threw a grenade, frick, like, well, okay, I hope I can make it. Sometimes you do. I played on easy and had a hard time.
Yeah,
that should not happen. And like, I mean, this is supposed to be the positive section, and we'll wait. We'll hamper our dislikes. But Mikey, I'm sorry. We went down a rabbit hole, and I'm glad it happened. But what else like was high points for you?
I mean, basically the second half of the game was where I had most of my like, oh, sweet moments. Probably for you guys too. Just where at the very end when he's like trying to get to the plane and you're just going through all these different hangars and stuff at night. I thought that was really cool and really well done. And of course the ending where they tie everything together and the credits, like that was so cool. But I don't know. For all the faults that I can think of this game, I still really liked it. I don't know what it is about it. I need to play it again, to be honest. I need to play it again and maybe another time just to pick up on why I enjoyed this, how much I did. Because, I don't know, even compared to 4, I still think back to this one. I'm like, man, it just left me with such a good feeling at the end of the game. I don't know what it was about it. It's kind of hard to pinpoint, which sucks for a podcast. But that's just me as usual.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, Stanley.
Anytime.
I can kind of pick up what you're saying on what you've been saying. I've never shipped Nate and Elena ever.
Really?
Nope. Don't buy it.
Man.
I never have, even in the 4th game. And I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but like, it's like, really? Like, y'all got together?
I get that.
Okay.
I get that if you started with 1. Did you play 1 first?
I mean, I played 1. Yeah, 1 was the first one. 1 was the first one that I played.
I played 4 first. So when I started this series, spoilers for 4, 3, 2, 1, they're married. So I was just like, oh, they're a cool couple. They seem nice, and they go through that whole thing. And yeah. So then when I started 1, I realized they were dating. I was like, oh, so this is like their story.
Yeah. And then that's the thing.
What's her hootie came in. I was like, get out of here, you hooker.
Chloe is fine. Foyne.
Yeah,
I'm
she
just
ain't
saying,
wife material. Let's all be honest.
You can't make a wife out of a hoe, as they say.
She ain't your hoe.
No mo. No, and here's the deal. Here's the problem with that. I started with 1, so when I see them in 4 have this like amazing relationship, you can kind of see that directing, like, or at least they have something to talk about. I kind of like, really. So this works then, I guess. Whereas through all 3 games, where is that? Like, where is it? And I guess it does kind of show its hand in the 4th game a little bit, because they are kind of, having a little bit of issues, spoiler alert. But I don't know. That was just one thing that, and I didn't mean to take away from what you said about them tying it all together. They did.
Yeah.
I ship Sully and Nate more than I do Elena and Nate. Because like, just their relationship, like the father-son thing. They did that is my favorite thing about this game. But I'm not trying to say you're wrong. I'm not saying that at all. But that was just one thing to mention.
I get that. I liked how they tied it together. The way it transfers from 3, from the very end, just kind of how they have their walk off in the sunset moment, and then you see where they are. I really enjoyed that, because I did just beat 4 again. So going from 3 straight into 4, it does work for me, but that is me kind of having to jump around in the franchise because I came to it kind of late. So
yeah. Well, and this is, you've mentioned before, this is one of your favorite game series, and I think the best thing is whenever someone can poke holes in a game that you like, or a game series that you like, or a series that you like in general, and you can say, yeah, but I still like it. That's amazing. Like, people have poked holes, like, this is a completely different story. Like, for me with Star Wars and stuff, people have been like, yeah, but what about this, and this? That's not. I'm like, you know what? You're right, but I still like it. It doesn't have to make sense, So, and it doesn't have to be perfect to like it. So, yeah, well, good on you. Ethan, what are some high points and some positives from you?
The Nate Sully story, that is really done well. Even though I didn't like even though I didn't like the flashback sequences all that much, I mean, ultimately, I don't know how much it really contributed, other than you see how he gets the ring. It was needed. I just didn't want as much of it, I guess. But you do get the start of their relationship, and so that really plays well into later scenes in this game, and actually harkens back to some of the scenes from the first 2 games, and they make a lot more sense to you in that context now. So yeah, that aspect of it, I thought was done really well. Shifting gears away from...
Yeah, well, before you move on, I just want to say their relationship was the thing for me where I was like, I want more of that from the first 2 games. Like, I want to go back now and, like, get more of that, because I feel like they did a good job of, like, kind of tying it together. So I just want to piggyback off that for a second and say that, to me, is the most likable character interaction. And I liked the spy vibes at the beginning, like with the Marlo or whatever her name was. I thought that was really cool, and it just seemed like it kind of changed. But go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, and that was something else that I liked, is starting out that way. Is you did definitely get that James Bond feel starting out, and that's really they were really good at tapping into that James Bond, Indiana Jones, King Solomon's Mines, whatever genre movie that deals with adventure like that. They tapped into it, and they gave it to you 110%. And there's more of the same in this Uncharted 3. Shifting gears away from the campaign, though, I actually got to beta test Uncharted 3 multiplayer when they made it available. So actually, if you find my Myopic Eagle tag on PS Now and add me as a friend, my tag actually shows up as Uncharted 3 U3 beta tester. I cool. Never changed it from the time I got off my PlayStation. But anyway, it was so great because Naughty Dog was so open with the community to listen to us, to hear what we had to say, look at our reports, look at the data compiled from us just goofing off in this brand new game that they were putting out there. And it was really fantastic to be a part of the development of what eventually would be a really decent multiplayer setup. And so, there's another aspect of the game that I really enjoyed being a part of. And, even though it's not available on the PC version that I played now, that server's long ago been turned off. That was also something that was really good about the game, is it allowed you to spend more time with it than just the campaign. And that was cool because, there were elements of the gunplay that I thought they were I hated third-person shooters at the time, right? Because I was so indoctrinated by Halo. Well, this one really was the bridge that opened me up to third-person games, because they made the weaponry and the grenade throwing and the brawling even, they made it accessible, so that somebody like me that was used to a Halo or some other first-person shooter type, they made it really easy for you to transition into that third-person perspective and enjoy the game rather than it being a chore.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something. Without Uncharted 2 multiplayer, Naughty Dog probably doesn't make the decision to make improvements for 3. That means that Uncharted 4 probably doesn't have multiplayer, which Uncharted 4's multiplayer is awesome. It is so much fun. Like, especially with the grappling hook, grappling around the maps and being like, oh God, like, it's just so different, you know? And you mentioned something before. Naughty Dog is not afraid to try things, you know, and take chances. And I think putting so much time into their multiplayer with 2 and with 3, they took a big risk because it wasn't like they were trying to make Gears of War, which had been pretty successful at the time. They weren't trying to do that. They were trying to make it feel different, and they did. You know, because I do remember playing a little bit of Uncharted, you know, multiplayer, Uncharted 3 multiplayer towards the very, very end. But what's crazy is that even something in like The Last of Us, which had multiplayer, I don't think that would exist in the same manner. So I think the multiplayer from Uncharted was highly influential on, you know, Naughty Dog's future moving forward, and especially from like what you're kind of saying, especially with 3, where they really kind of were tightening it up. So what was that like? Like, would you get feedback on your feedback? I mean, like
no, you wouldn't hear anything. But I mean, you if I remember correctly, you could send like bug reports in. You had a screen that you had access to. You could send in bug reports, and it was cool that they were welcoming that kind of. I think for Reach, I did a beta for Reach when it was in development, and you heard nothing. Basically, you just played matches, and Bungie kind of behind the scenes was looking at the data from all of those people playing, and there really wasn't a sense of community. It didn't seem like you would see the newsletter that would come out from Bungie, and that would be kind of the indication that, hey, we're looking at the data, thanks for playing. You know, that was the most that you would get out of it. But Naughty Dog somehow had a different feel about it. They felt like they were they felt like gamers, and they were really welcoming more of an interaction. And that's just my perception of the time. I mean, we are talking about, you know, over a decade ago now at this point. But yeah, it was a different time, and you know, I think they benefited greatly from it.
And that's here to cool you.
I will say this. I hated third-person shooters so much that a couple years later, after I had played Uncharted, I sat down and went through the Gears series. And while I enjoyed the time playing Gears because I was playing it with a friend and enjoyed going through those stories, I could not stand the Gears gameplay itself because of being third person.
You know
I just
what? That's
never got
a
into
lot
it.
of people
Never
say
enjoyed
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the difference, though, is that's not just Gears. That was pretty much anything third person that I played. I never cared much for. The highest praise I can give Naughty Dog is they made a third person shooter game enjoyable for me.
Wow. Even Mass Effect, you weren't crazy about?
No, not when I first. No, the first Mass Effect. No, I wasn't crazy. I loved the story, and that's what kept me going back. But the gameplay itself, initially, I wasn't. I would rather have spent time in an Uncharted or a Halo.
Wow. Okay. Well said. Any other positives you want to hit on?
No.
Okay. There you have it. I think the set pieces in this game are incredible. Naughty Dog continues. I mean, it's just you can just see their lineage from Crash, which was doing cutting edge things back in the day, to Jak and Daxter, which was like kind of one of the first times you really saw evolution in a game series. Because, you know, in Jak and Daxter 1, you know, he's like this like happy-go-lucky guy and jumping around and doing all this other stuff. And then Jak 2, it's like, okay, like now things are a little bit different. And then in Jak 3, it's like, oh, like now we have guns. And like he's grown up and he's doing adult things. And like that's how it was. And I think Naughty Dog has always been really good about kind of continuing their stories, not only their character stories, but also just making each environment feel more lived in, more realistic, and you know that's not a real place where they go like to get the information and see like the map where you know where they need to go and do all this other stuff. That's not a thing. But Uncharted makes me think that it could be, you know, and that could be a thing, and I think that's a huge compliment to the game. That being said, you know, we've talked about the music a little bit, which I think is awesome, especially in certain moments like on that boat when you're crawling around, like you're, you know, looking up and trying to do the thing, which I also find equally annoying. But the music was cool for sure. The voice acting, I'm jaded by Nolan North. I've just never really loved the guy. And I don't hate him. I need to retract my statement I made a while back. I don't hate Nolan North. But I'm not as in love with him as everyone else is. And I don't know. Like, he's a big reason why this series doesn't click for me. I can't relate to Nathan Drake at all. At all. I really can't.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Nolan North is my Nathan Fillion. I don't know what your problem is.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Thank you. Every time I play this series, that's probably why I love it so much. When I have Firefly withdrawals, I play Uncharted. And then I feel like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a different universe, but he's still doing stuff. I like it. Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I just don't connect with him.
I don't get it. I don't get the no connection.
You'd have been happier if he'd been named Malcolm Drake, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is I love Nathan Fillion, which is weird. And I don't know. There's just a disconnect there. Maybe it's because we're both really good looking and, we both risk our lives on a day-to-day basis. And he's just, no, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I like him the most in Uncharted 4. I really like him there. But yeah, it just feels like more of the same to me in a lot of ways. And, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good segue into the things that we're not crazy about, especially with this game. Go ahead, Mikey. Go ahead and just be a smartass for 5 seconds. Just do it.
I was just going to say, if it ain't broke, except for all of the gun mechanics, don't fix it.
Oh, God. Yeah. Let's segue into the things that we're not crazy about in this game. I'll go first, actually. There are certain moments in this game where I'm like, okay, I killed everybody. Where do I go? So many times. Where I'm like, or I'll be climbing a place and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I see where I'm supposed to climb. Wait, hey. And then I realize, wait a minute. Why did you let me go on this path where I can climb here if this isn't the way to go? Why is this even an option? Put me on the path to where I can go. Go ahead, Mikey.
Are you talking about the rooftop scene?
No, it was multiple times in this game. Like there was multiple.
The shipyard, the shipbreaking yard,
the house,
the rooftop scene. Yes,
the burning house.
You had trouble with the burning house?
Yes, there was stuff you could climb, but it's like I can't. What the heck? Also,
there was one place in the house that got me.
Yeah,
got me hung up.
So that's one thing. I hate, and I mean hate, the puzzles in this game.
Wow.
I almost stopped playing. I'm not kidding. Not because I couldn't understand what I was supposed to do. It was more the thing of, you're really going to make me put these gears down and pick them up 50 times to get this thing to work right? Go ahead, Mikey.
I got it second try.
Well, you're smarter than me.
Here's
the
they
deal.
Literally put the right gears and pointed them out, and I was just like, oh. And then I grabbed the 3 gears and threw them up there.
Dude, no, literally, whenever you have the bigger spaces, it's like, okay.
Yeah. I put the 3 up there, and then they were like, oh, maybe you should flip a couple. And then I flipped them because I was like, oh yeah. And then it was the right way.
Yeah, it took me all of 10 minutes of trying to do it to figure out what it was before the game gave me the hint of, hey, this is how you do it. I was like, oh my God. And then there was another puzzle, something else that made me mad that I was just thinking about. The point is, it just felt like they were just trying to add. Oh, I figured it out. There were certain puzzles where it's like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. Nowhere in the notes did it tell me that that's what I'm supposed to do.
Like what?
Like the pathway. Like the pathway in the very beginning where you have to walk on the tiles a certain way. Nothing in the notebook tells you, or no, maybe it was it was the arranging the animals. That's what it was. Arranging the animals in the beginning. I was like,
no, those clues were there.
Yeah,
I didn't see it. I did not see it. I obviously I didn't piece it together. And it comes down to I learned something. I learned something with this game. I don't like puzzles.
I'm right there with you, Gabe.
Everyone loves Indiana Jones, and it's like, oh, he figured out this stuff, and they're trying to make you feel like Indiana Jones. I don't need to feel like Indiana Jones. I just want to run and gun. That's it. Like, let me run. It's Sahara.
Well, this isn't the
Sahara.
game. This isn't the game for you then.
No, and that's a big reason. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, like Nathan Drake is supposed to be this sleuth, being able to put this stuff together, but I feel like a retard because I'm it takes me an hour to figure out a puzzle, and I'm like, forget it. I'm done doing this. Like, I'm gonna Google this. I'm gonna YouTube it. I hate that I have to do that. I mean, this isn't the Ocarina of Time days. We shouldn't have to be doing that. And there were some puzzles where I'm like, no, I'm not going to look this one up. I'm going to figure this out myself. And I was glad I did at certain points.
Yeah.
But I hate it. I hate the puzzles in this entire series. Don't do a thing for me. Don't like it.
Man, that was kind of me with 2. With this one, I didn't really have as much of a problem with that.
Really? Because I'm with Gabe. The puzzles in this one, to me, at the time when it came out, and again when I played it through just recently, both times through this game in particular, something about the puzzles just really turned me off to that whole aspect of the gameplay. In the second one, I was all in. I loved the second one.
Man, they just did, the second one. They were too easy. I'm not
Okay,
that I'm
well, that's the problem then.
not that I'm a brainiac. I'm not saying I'm the
Did you hear
smartest
that,
man
Gabe?
alive.
Did you hear that, Gabe? Mikey says, "Well, you guys are simpletons."
Yeah.
Not
you're idiots.
that. No, it was just like. I felt like Spock.
They were.
I was just
They
like,
were too easy.
Here's the logical thing. Oh yeah, that's the answer. So that's what I did. But
They
with
were
these,
easy, and it kept the story going.
That's
it
the
kept
point.
you moving.
That's
I don't know.
the point.
I kind of liked how it broke it up a little bit because I was like, oh, I'm in a puzzle room and I can't. I kind of enjoyed that for me because I don't play puzzle games, and so when I have that in a video game like this, it's kind of refreshing in a way to where it's something that I can struggle with rather than just like, oh, I got to point and click on a bunch of bad guys right now. So I don't know. Maybe that's the difference in what drives this series for both of us.
Well, and I think Maestri kind of hit it on the head. Like in 2, it was a glance, and it reminds me of Miles Morales, which you both have not played. But there are puzzles in that game where you can clearly see, oh, it's just a matter of maneuvering these. There's a combination that I have to execute these things in. It's not, okay, I'm going to hold my map up and like go through the journal and do this all this stuff. And I applaud Naughty Dog for trying, but it is just not for me. And that's not how it was in the first 2 games. This one is different.
Yeah.
And I applaud them. Like I said, I do applaud them for trying to be more innovative. That being said, that really bugged me. And it's the same reason why I was really enjoying Uncharted Lost Legacy on on PS4. I was loving that game. And then a puzzle at the time, a year and a half, 2 years ago, there was a puzzle where I was like, I refuse to be defeated by this, so I'm just going to quit playing the game. Like, I'm not going to look up the answer. I'm just going to quit playing. That was my answer, Yeah. I refuse to be defeated by the puzzle by quitting the game. That's what I said.
I was like, what?
Yeah, so I'm a coward is basically what I'm trying to say. No, but that was another thing that I wasn't crazy about. We kind of already talked about like the dream sequences a little bit, like him like running, being like, Brent, no, like Zoolander, and it's like he's running, and like I took 3 or 4 turns, and I'm like, okay, like let's keep going, There was a time whenever you have to fight Cutter, right? And you just keep fighting him and keep fighting him and keep fighting him, and I'm like, oh my god. Do I have to keep fighting him? Like what? Like it's the same 4 animations over and over again. Like am I supposed to push him?
How far did Sully and Chloe get down that tunnel before they realized these guys aren't right behind us?
Exactly. It went on for
10 minutes later.
Long, and that leads me into my next point. The fight scenes in this game feel like badly choreographed fight scenes, where literally like you go to thing and like the guys are like waiting, like and like they get punched, and I'm like, holy crap, that is so sloppy. It doesn't feel fluid at all. Like I avoided hand-to-hand combat at all costs because it just doesn't feel good at all.
Because the timing just didn't work for the buttons that you were being told to push,
which sucks.
I had a hard time getting the timing right when it would show me the green button, I'd start hitting the green button, but for whatever reason, I wasn't hitting it at the right time, and so I got slugged so many times and killed.
Which sucks because at the beginning of the game, it feels like it kind of takes it easy on you. You're like, oh my god, like this is dope. Like, you're fighting all those guys and like you're, kind of like dressed up, and it's like, wow, like, okay, all right, Naughty Dog, you're really setting the tone here. And then whenever you try and like make practical application throughout the entire game of those same mechanics, it's just like, like it's like you're waiting, and it's like, God, come on, man. Like,
yeah.
So that was a hugely disappointing thing for me because, like, I don't love violence, but me and Rex Tucker, we both love fighting games, right? And fighting games, it's all about timing, and when the timing does not feel right, it doesn't feel on, that is a huge turnoff in so many ways. Another thing. I kind of talked about Elena and Nate a little bit, I like that they kind of pull the, she's the one that kind of brings him to his senses card a little bit. Like, you don't have to do this. Like, you're obsessed. Like, you don't really have to do this, And like, they've kind of always had this consistent relationship of being at odds, a little bit. Like, they were together, didn't work out. They're doing their thing going on, but somehow they end up together. Like, okay, whatever. Whatever. I've never shipped them ever, except in 4. So that was another thing. I felt like the flashback sequences, I kind of like what Ethan was saying, kind of felt unnecessary. I know it kind of set up, like the Sully and Nate stuff was cool for sure. But it did seem like it drug on a bit too long, in my opinion, and that's just kind of a nitpick. But that's kind of like the last thing on my list. I think I talked about my main things. So I'm gonna throw it to Mikey, since this is like one of his favorite game series. Mikey, what's your negatives on this game?
Basically, the whole castle section. I hated that. It was
Dude,
so boring.
You talking about the Syrian desert?
Yeah. No.
Whenever they show up at nighttime, him and Sully, and then they meet up with Cutter and Chloe. Yeah, that's
it's supposedly in Syria.
I hated that. That whole section, it was so awful. It wasn't awful, but it was just like, why is it so long? It was so long. So many sections of just like, either you're in a hallway or on top of a long, narrow section fighting guys, or you're trying to figure out where you're going. Like, I don't know. I died so many times trying to do that section because I didn't know what I was doing, or I was hunkered down and all I had was a couple of shots left with my pistol and I couldn't find a gun. And so I would just die over and over and over trying to figure out how to get somewhere. Like, that was the most irritating section of this game.
He ain't lying.
Yeah, that was the only time in this game where I was like, all right, I got to stop playing for a while. So I put my controller down. I didn't come back to it for like a week. And then I came back and I was like, okay, I figure out what I got to do. And I'm just pushed past that. Yeah. And then I finished the game. I was like, you know what? That was worth it. I really liked that. But yeah, that entire section could have been half as long, if not less than half.
God. And when you're trying to escape...
Yeah.
Before that, and the freaking spider, or after that,
the spiders. You guys know I hate spiders.
Crap.
I like
every
the spiders
time
personally.
That sound would come up, I was like, I'm done. I want to be done. Let's get through this, and I'm done.
Yeah.
I hate spiders too, but that's why I kind of enjoyed it, because I was like, ooh.
Except, okay, everything was cool about the spiders, except whenever you're literally just like shotgunning and they're all, yeah. Like they're moving all over the place, and I'm like, this is so dumb. Like, this is stupid.
Yeah, and it took forever.
It took forever
to get out of that hole.
And I'm like, well, I better time my shot. The first couple of times I died, I was like, oh my God, I better time my shots perfectly on easy mode, because I'm going to run out of ammo. You give me a double barrel shotgun, I get, okay, Emmy Hennig, whatever you say. And like, I applaud them for trying. Did not land for me. Annoyed. I want to play on easy for a reason. Like, okay, sorry. Continue. Go ahead. Continue, Mikey. Oh, Mikey can't hear us because he took his shirt off. Go ahead,
Sorry.
Mikey. Continue.
It's getting toasty in here. That whole section, and then, oh man, what was the other one? It's towards the end, I think, I think it's right after you come up the elevator. It's just like a little quick section, but you come up the elevator and it's when you're hallucinating, like in the last section, like the first second you hallucinate, and then you're like stuck in this hallway. It was the only part of the game where I literally had no idea what I had to do. I was probably there for 15 minutes. Just walking around. I literally edged around the entire map, figuring out what I had to do. And then I finally figured out you're supposed to get back on the elevator. There was no prompt. There was no nothing to get back on that elevator.
Same thing in the tower for me. I was like running up and down the tower before I realized like there's a freaking door there.
Yeah.
I reloaded that checkpoint.
Yeah.
Like I reloaded that checkpoint like 3 times. I'm like, okay, boom, boom, like killing those guys. And like I'm running around, I'm like, are you guys gonna follow me or what? Like, what am I missing? And then I realized, oh, there's a big monster tard over there about to come through the door, and like he comes through and like he's all raw, and like okay, there it is,
Okay, and did you guys enjoy the rocket section on the roof? I hated the rockets.
It's
but I'm not fantastic with the dragon sniper.
That was the only part of that I liked because I any game with a sniper rifle, I'm all in. So
I guess
that's my thing.
It took me a little bit to warm up to it and get used to using it before I could start picking them off. But
literally in this game series, if I have an opportunity to have a sniper, I'll take it through the whole game if I can.
Yeah,
I liked the pistol.
That's me.
I liked the pistol with the sniper scope on it. That was dope. Like
very cool.
I'll tell you what I liked was the bolt action rifle.
Oh,
bolt action rifle is great, especially if you run around a corner and somebody's standing there, boom, and it was one shot done.
They're all like, frick. Yeah. Is that all your negatives, Mikey, or do you have more?
That I can think of, yeah, I'm sure I'll think of some here in a little bit, as usual. But my big ones. Those are my big ones for sure.
Maestri?
Well, I mean, you guys have covered most of the things that I had marked down. The spiders definitely was a problem. The fighting, the timing on it felt like it was wonky. When it comes to the set pieces, like the mansion in France, the overgrown mansion, to me is that's like one of the top set pieces that I think any of these Uncharted games have had. I really enjoyed that segment. But then, like you say, the next one in line is Syria, the castle there, and it's such a drag and such a letdown, and takes so long to get through. The shipyard is cool in that I've never played a game where I've been in something like that, an environment, but it's a maze. And there were places where it's like, okay, I can only climb up and down the anchor chain so many times. What do I do now? It took me forever to realize that I needed to slip into the water and swim to the next section. There was things like that, and climbing to the top of the mast and then jumping out and across, something that I didn't readily see to get to the next level. It felt like it was purposefully hard, and that's fine if that's how they were wanting to do it, but for a game player like myself, it broke up the flow of the game enough to make it unenjoyable.
Totally.
And
I 1,000% agree with that.
And so that's and when we go through all of these set pieces, it felt like there were a lot of elements like that broke up the flow of the game. I'm just wanting to play on easy, shoot guys, go through the story, and just relive it and just have a good time. But when you have those halting places like that, it takes you out of it, and suddenly you feel like, all right, I'm playing a computer game that I'm not liking very much right now. And if you have too many of those, it tips the scale for me, and that's why I said no initially, because there were so many of those moments where I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to go to YouTube, I'm gonna have to check a walkthrough here, and I hate having to do that, and it felt like there were too many places where I had to do that.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree. There were so many times I shouldn't have to ask myself, what am I supposed to do? Like, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and a little bit extra on the set pieces themselves. All in all, like when we get to the final, the descent down into the city in the sand there, it felt very much like we did this before in Uncharted 2. This is Shambhala, just in the desert instead of in an alpine setting, right? And so I understand there's an element of fantasy here, and there's a suspension of disbelief is with regards to geography, but there's not this many hidden places on the earth. It starts to stretch the level of believability, and it wasn't any different than what we had already seen in the first two games. So, I use that as a mark against it as well.
They use the same trick twice, for sure. Or three times, really. I mean, all of these games have somewhat of a sense of you got to kind of place yourself out. And I really screwed myself playing 2 and then playing 4 because 4 is so grounded. It's easy. We're looking for, there's not really that same, I mean, it does kind of have that adventurer feeling, but there's not like this supernatural, or out of the realm of possibility feeling to it, which is awesome. I love that. And this one, I get it, it's a video game, but there are so many more moments in the game, and this is what's frustrating. There's moments in the game where it's like, wow, I feel like this is really happening. And then something else happens, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm playing a video game. I hate that. I hate when games do that. And I sure as crap hate it when they do it on purpose. Because there are so many times in this game where it's like, gotcha, you went the wrong way. It's like, why did you make me do that? You know what I mean? Or it's like, oh my God, that's what I had to do? It's 2011. I understand. It's hard for me to talk about today. So I agree with you for sure. Mikey, you have something to add?
I'm just thinking about it because, like, just coming from 4, playing these 3 games, and then knowing, like, how, like, not spoiling anything, but, like, how 4 makes fun of these 3 games, kind of. How they're just like, yeah, we did all that, but here's what you really wanted. And then they show you, like, through the storytelling and how the game goes, like, this is what we meant to do, but this is all we could do with the first 3.
Shareholders.
Yeah, basically.
No. Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, like, I agree with everything you're saying, Ethan, but it does, if you do get to play 4, you'll see they do change. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you guys, the villain duo, did it work for you in this one, or thoughts?
Worked better than the second one for me.
I liked
Okay.
this. I liked it better in the second game as well. And here's why. We just talked about Mission Impossible Fallout, right? Henry Cavill is the bad guy.
Yeah.
And we're attached to him as a bad guy. Like, he's not just like this slimy, like, pretty boy, like, with, that can fight. Every time I was chasing that goober in the suit and, like, he's doing his thing, I'm like, there's no way this guy is this cool. He's a freaking noob. Like, I'm pretty sure I could beat that guy up. And that's saying something. I'm like, I felt, it's, all bets are off. It was hard. She was more interesting. I'm like, I think I would have a hard time fighting her. But he was just annoying.
Yes.
So annoying and unbelievable and, like, one-dimensional. It's like, why is this guy here? Every time he showed up, I'm like, who invited him? Like, come on. Why is he in the game? No, it doesn't work for me.
I think that's why they gave him such, like, a ridiculous death.
It was, yes.
Because everybody's just like, God, finally. Even Nate in the game was just like, well, that's expected. Because it's just like, yeah, why are you even here? You're not even, like, the main bad guy. But, yeah, I agree with that for sure.
She was cool, especially when she's kind of taunting Nathan, like, hey, here's your legacy right here, bro, and we've had that symbolism with that ring for so long, and Naughty Dog definitely likes to show possessions and use possessions as a plot device. And we know that ring means a lot to Nate. I mean, I loved that.
I think from a storytelling standpoint, Naughty Dog kind of missed. If they had left just the woman pulling the strings and just allowing sending henchmen after you and to be the foil, instead of a right-hand man that just didn't fit the bill, in my opinion, at all. She would have been more of a threat if she had just been on her own, here you are, take on my hordes and see if you can get to me. And I think it would have worked better.
Devil's advocate, though, I feel like that would have got boring. Just being like, all right, have a cutscene of some old lady, and then she leaves, and a bunch of guys attack you.
Yeah, but that should be on brand, though. Like,
yeah, but I think that's what they're trying to change it a little bit.
Okay, so make this guy like a huge muscly guy, then. Like, make him.
That was the last boss.
I was gonna say that was
They can't do that again.
No, it's true. I mean, if she had showed up, we saw her in the beginning of the game. This game has 22 chapters. We see her once in the first 8 or 9 chapters, once, 5, 6 chapters after that, and then once in the last chapter. That's fine. That's an arc. That is beginning, middle, end. Boom. Done. And if you're going to put a lackey in there, let us kill him in the middle of the game to where she's like, oh, I figured you would find me because you killed so-and-so. You know what I mean? Like, I can't remember what that dude's name was. I just was like, God, I can't wait to freaking kill you. Like, you're so annoying. God. No, it didn't work for me, but I did like her.
Let's say it was Frederick. I don't know.
Or
let's go with Frederick.
Or Chelsea.
Chelsea.
Oh God. Is there anything else you want to add, gentlemen, before we go on to give this thing a score? I think we said it all. Uncharted is a legendary series. There's no getting around it. It has inspired so many gamers. It has inspired game developers. I've heard many game developers in conversation reference Uncharted. It has a gravitas to it and a pedigree. Naughty Dog has gained their pedigree that they have today because they make good games, and I don't think that Uncharted is any less legendary than anything else they've ever made. That being said, for me personally, I don't know why that these first 3 games don't really click super well. There was a time where I praised Uncharted 2 for its bravery and, I don't know. There was a time where it just really impressed me more. Whereas now it's just kind of like, yeah, it's cool. I like it. And I think that's kind of where I land with this third game. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool game. I think you will probably enjoy it. I think you will probably have a lot of the same. I think you will for sure have a lot of the same frustrations that we have. But I do think it's cool. So for that, I'm going to give it the same score that I gave the second one. I'm going to give it an 8. Mikey, what do you think?
I forget what I gave the second one.
I think you gave it a... No, I think you gave it a 7. Or a 6 or a 7.
Oh, for the 2? Oh, right. I think I gave it a 7. Yeah, you're right. For all the things that I like about this game and I dislike, I mean, there definitely is some dislikes, like what I was saying, but for me, an 8.5 feels pretty spot on. Because
Coward.
Like I was saying at the beginning, like there's just something about these games to where once you get to this one in the trilogy, for me, I was just like, yes, finally. And especially knowing what comes next, because I played them all, I really enjoyed it. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm
not going to knock you for loving something, bro.
Yeah, maybe I just lucked out with some of the puzzles, and just breezed through them. Like that happens in games. But,
yeah, I think attitude is everything, though, too. Because for me, if you have a bad attitude going into those puzzles, you're not going to like them. But if you love the lore and you love the experience you're having, that's what it's about. Then the game is working for you. You're having a good time with it.
Yeah, that's me. Not work I love every moment of the puzzles in these type of games because I grew up with like Tomb Raider and stuff, and those were way too hard for me, and I would just struggle and be so frustrated with those games. And then once I got to these games, I was a little older, I was still pretty young, but I had the mental capacity to like figure them out. Even though I did struggle, like I still enjoyed it, And with this game, I feel like it was difficult at some points, but I still had fun, And I think they found like a happy medium with this third one. So an 8.5 feels pretty good to me.
Ethan?
Well, I didn't get to score the first two, so I'm going to run through those right quick.
Yeah, please do.
To give a perspective. Uncharted was a great introduction. It's a little hard to revisit, I think, in this day and age. And I think if I went back to play it, I probably would not finish it, just because I know the games after it are so much better. So I'm looking back on a decade, remembering that game, and I would give it a 6 out of 10. It come forward to Uncharted 2, and it was kind of my jam. It hit right. It ticked all the boxes for me. It was everything I wanted in an adventure game, and harkened back to Indiana Jones and everything else that I loved as a kid growing up. And like you mentioned, the Tomb Raider games very much harkened back to that, and I enjoyed those back in the day. So I would give that one an 8 out of 10. It's very good. It's not perfect, but it's very, very good in my opinion, and actually solidifies the Uncharted series as being amazing. And the music on that one is there are two opening 5 seconds of the Nathan Drake theme and the opening 5 seconds of the Halo CE menu music with the monks singing. Those are like indelibly etched into my mind, and I love those soundtracks. 8 out of 10 for Uncharted 2. Now we get to Uncharted 3. It is a good game. It is worth playing. If you enjoyed Uncharted 2, you have to play 3. That being said, it's kind of more of the same from my perspective, and I give it a 7 out of 10.
I'm going to tell you right now, Ethan, you have to play Uncharted 4.
Dude.
There's no... It's almost like if you love Uncharted, any of the Uncharted games, because for me, there was a time where I was like, 2 and 4 are synonymous, but 4 is the best across the board. Because it cuts the, like, ape, you know, the Yeti sequence. It's just so grounded, and it is so good. And you have to play it. Like, if whatever you got to do, man, like, if you got to buy a PS4 and then sell it after you're done, you got to play it.
Uncharted, if you know somebody that has a PlayStation 4, just borrow it and play it, like, over a week.
Because here's the thing. Uncharted 4 is the Uncharted 2 for the PS4.
Oh,
It is.
100%.
Like, it 1000... That and Spider-Man 2018. Like, literally, if you bought a PS4 just to play Spider-Man 2018, Uncharted 4, and Miles Morales all on PS4, no one is going to make fun of you. I'm just saying, those games are so good. And it's only been after... It's like, for everything that all three of those games... I feel like all three of these games excel in different ways. The first one, the atmosphere, the best out of all of them, in my opinion. 2, the cohesiveness of every... Like, the story... the gameplay, all of it together, for me personally, I think it's probably the best overall experience. And I think 3 does a good job just in performance. It kind of brings everything home, ties it all together. 4 takes all of that and even delivers past that. It's so good. And innovates on things that... Innovates on systems you already like. So I'm just going to leave that there. I'm not going to harp on you anymore, but you got to play it. I'm just going to say.
And it's gorgeous.
It's so pretty. It's so good. Yeah. So there you have it. You have an 8 from me. You have an 8.5 from Mikey, and you have a 7 from Ethan Maestri. I feel like that's a very fair review across the board, and we've been talking for a little over an hour about this game. So there you have it. I don't think Ethan is going to join us for the next review. I doubt he will. If he texts me after this show and says, all right, I'll buy a PS4, we will wait. We will wait for Ethan to be able to be on the next one.
I'll play it again.
I will. Here's the deal. I will play it again.
Yeah.
Like, for sure.
I just finished it. I'll play it again.
I'll replay it. So we will wait, because who knows when this will come out. No one knows. I have no idea. I'm like a loose cannon. You have no idea what you have no idea how high I can fly. But if that happens, if Ethan could also text me and be like, dude, there's no way that's ever going to happen. We'll see. nevertheless, we will be covering Uncharted 4 on the show in the near future. But it's been fun to talk about stuff. It's been fun to kind of go down a rabbit hole. It's been fun to do this review. And Ethan, it's always a pleasure to have you on. So thank you so much for coming on the show. It means a lot. Mikey, I look forward to our next episode, whether or not Maestri shows up. And I'll be interested to see how I haven't played this game I've not played this game since 2017, Uncharted 4. So it'll be fun. And you do realize you have to buy Uncharted Lost Legacy now, right?
I've already played through like half of that.
Okay, well, great.
Yeah.
I wish you had a Vita so we could talk about Golden Abyss.
Nobody wishes they had a Vita, Gabe.
I'm buying one tonight, actually.
Hey,
I've decided.
Wishes they had a Vita.
My son's got a Vita. I can jump in on that.
Let's do it.
Go for it.
Dude, if he has a Vita, me and you, Maestri. Me and you. It's happening. Because I'm buying.
Dang it.
I've regretted
Ethan's
selling my
getting a PlayStation,
Vita.
and I'm getting a Vita. God.
I've regretted selling my Vita.
You got the worst of that deal, Mikey.
Dude. Well, here's the deal. Uncharted Golden Abyss was developed by a different studio. It wasn't developed. I mean, it is owned by Naughty Dog, but it was not made by the same people who made the rest of the games. So that'll be interesting. If you're down, Ethan, well, my people will get in touch with your people. With your people. We'll talk about it.
I'll have to see if it's still functional. I don't think that thing has been out of the dustbin in probably 5 years or more. But yeah, well, I'll see if it's still functional.
Boot it up. See what happens. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. As always, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to write in with your questions, comments, concerns, whatever, you can find us on Twitter at wannabecritic or WBC Product on Twitter. You can also email us at thewannabecollective. We have made the full jump. All shows you can send into that email. Of course, Game Club has its own podcast feed. You know, A Guy and His Wife has its own podcast feed. But everything else... And obviously, the Wannabe Critic podcast still is a podcast feed, but that's my solo content that I do because I am Gabriel Fast and I do claim to be the Wannabe Critic. But you can go over to the Wannabe Collective where you can find our weekly shows. You can find Who Would Win. You can find Nostalgia Trip. You can find Beer Bros. You know, you can find all of the sub shows that we do over there. So make sure you go give that some love, and make sure if you're listening to the show right now, you're already listening to the podcast. You've already made it an hour and 43 minutes in. You might as well go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Okay, The Wannabe Collective at YouTube.com. There'll be video versions of all the stuff we do, and all of the podcasts that we do will be on that YouTube channel. So there you have it. Mikey, do you want people to be able to find you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me at Lowkey MC on Twitter. That's about it.
And Ethan Maestri?
You can find me at Ethan Maestri on the Twitter, and also go check out Drive Back the Night, an Andromeda series podcast over on the Podbean, and then you can find the feed over there on Twitter at Andromeda Pod.
There you have it. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for making it all the way through the podcast. We love you so much, and we appreciate you listening. Until next time, say goodbye, gentlemen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
I'm not even going to say anything.
Okay. Well, whatever possessed you to check out any of the content that you saw today, I just want to say thank you so much for doing so. If you check the description down below, you'll see that there's a variety of different projects that I'm associated with. This is Wannabe Critic Productions after all. So I just wanted to say, if you enjoyed what you saw today, consider giving some of those other projects a chance as well. There's a lot of stuff that I'm a part of that I do. If you were here for me or for someone else that you saw today, again, just thank you for checking it out, and I hope to see you again. But until next time, I'm Gabriel Fast, and I'll always be the Wannabe Critic.